Hello and welcome to the gak.co.uk Guitar Shop podcast. I am your host Mark Packham, who is with me this evening.
Hello, my name is Jay. I am the assistant manager here.
Sweet Moses! Jesus in a burger.
Hello.
So you're not dead?
I'm not. No, I'm still here.
It's been like a month and a half.
1 week?
It hasn't been that long.
It has. It's been ages.
No, it
I
hasn't.
think it's been 6 podcasts.
Yeah,
No, it hasn't been 6
It's been
podcasts.
5 or 6 podcasts.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
I know time flies when you're on mescaline, but for us,
I mean,
been...
I'd seen that the podcast listens were down, and I hadn't realised that it had been that long though. I am sorry.
Actually, the figures have been a lot better.
Well,
in
yes,
fact,
no.
we need to have a chat.
But sales of Blues Juniors and Baja Tellies have dropped considerably.
Well down.
Yeah, sorry. I was off for a couple of weeks, and then there was a couple of weeks where I couldn't make it. I'm sure it's only been 4 that I've missed.
I think it's 5.
I think it's 5.
Are you not counting today?
No.
That's the 5th one. Really? Wow. Okay. That's quite a long time. I've had 5 brilliant Thursdays.
Excellent.
So, yeah, no, I've just been off for a while. But I've still been working. I just haven't been able to do the podcast.
Who else is here?
I'm here, and I kind of forgot how we do the intros there. Yeah, I'm here, and I'm here for bass. What do I normally say?
You say your name.
Oh, right, I say, yeah, I'm Joe. Is that what I say?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that what we say?
My name is
Oh, yeah,
Joseph
that's what we say. We say,
_900.
my
I'm
name's
here
Joe,
for bass,
and I'm here for bass-related queries.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. Yeah.
And my name is Matt. I'm the manager, and I'm here
That's
for
what we
googling
do.
things.
Because you don't have a title.
No, that's right. I never
That's
ever tell.
it,
'Cause
yeah,
my
yeah.
job changes every week. so-
Well,
Just general layabout, Monkey Boy.
we're sort of the
Do you know what I've been
T-boy.
doing
Monkey
this
Butler.
week? Do you know what I've been doing this week?
Monkey
At the moment, if you go onto our website and you look at any Jackson guitars that are new for 2014, I put those there. So if you see any errors in the listings, let me know. Like, email me personally. Don't email the main thing, 'cause then the
Because
management
Joe will
find
get in
out.
trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
Just Joe.Branton for any Jackson errors that might come up. How is everyone?
Good.
It feels like ages, and we seem to think it's 5 podcasts, but maybe the last one you did, Matt wasn't here.
Yeah, it was only 2
Oh,
of you
yeah, I
last
think
week.
that's true,
And
yeah.
especially-
I think it's been a while.
It must have
since
been
we've
really
actually been
boring last week.
Last week's one was probably the best one we've ever done.
Why? Who wasn't here?
It was
I
just
mean,
you two.
obviously, I listen.
Yes, definitely.
Sorry.
You two chumps weren't here.
Yeah, we
it
weren't
was,
here.
Me
It
and
was-
Mark had a serious debate.
It was just
About
Packham
what?
and Knight.
Okay.
Do you know
Well-
what? We did the podcast at my house last week, and we had a really good chat about guitars.
And ate lots of Haribo.
Yeah,
As opposed to what?
Well,
a really
this-
bad chat.
well,
about
this,
guitars.
this nonsense that
Oh,
we
okay.
do every week.
Okay.
It was actually like serious, and we answered loads of questions and stuff.
Oh, that's good.
Do people listen to this for seriousness?
Well,
I'd imagine if
clearly
you're
by the figures, they don't listen to it for you because
Well, yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
they've been up.
Yes.
So this
Yeah.
evening, we're going to talk about what you need to start a band. We've all been in bands / are in bands, and something we get asked quite a lot is basically what is like the base level stuff I need to go gigging. So I thought we'd talk about that, talk about guitars and basses, amps, pedals, and I thought we'd also cover a bit of PA as well. Like, do you need your own PA if you're going out to do a gig, or are you the sort of band where the PA will be there? If so, is there anything else that you need to bring? Let's dive in, I guess.
Let's do it. Let's dive in head
So-
first.
You seemed hesitant there.
Well, no, let's go for it. I'm just wondering where we start, because I think we should talk about the kind of level of guitars that you need to go in at, and all of this that we say tonight, I guess, is going to be subjective. Like, you could go and do a gig with a £50 guitar that you find in a boot fair, but to bring you up to a level that's kind of acceptable professionalism wise, I guess that's where we're going in. Is that agreed?
yeah, I guess that's fair enough.
Yes.
Good. So if someone comes in and asks you for a gigging guitar, Matt, where do you kind of point them?
Well, I mean, I think if they know what sort of body shape they want, so say if they want a Strat, a Telly, or a Les Paul, the 3 main ones. Obviously, you might go down the oddness route, might be in a metal band, but let's stick to those ones. I don't think you can really go wrong with some of the basic Squires. And if you want to spend a little bit more, a classic vibe. To be honest, if you go £300, that's my limit. You know, I want a good guitar, I want to go out and gig it.
I think
Classic vibes.
that's kind of a new thing, though, certainly for like something that's emerged in the last 5 years or so, that you have been able to purchase a fully gigging guitar for that price point.
Yeah.
Like the classic vibes are the first thing.
I mean, the thing is, when we sell a lot of guitars to maybe people that have maybe played guitar like 20, 30 years ago and haven't played for like 10 years or something, and they go, oh, well, I remember Squire. Squire's a name you want to avoid. And it's like, so much has changed, even in the last few years.
Well, people still say, even young people still say it.
Oh yeah, totally. People come in and like.
I don't know where it comes from though.
No, neither do I.
No, I don't know either.
Early Squires are really good. Like obviously the JV stuff, like the Japanese built stuff, are some of the best guitars ever made. And I don't ever think there was like a massive dip in quality. Like I don't ever remember them being awful.
It's true. If you buy an Affinity Squire, you're going to take. There are corners cut to put out a guitar for the sort of price that you're buying an Affinity Strat, Tele, or P bass for. But
I mean,
not to compromise the overall.
Not anything else. Yeah, none of even the standard stuff is perfectly good.
I mean, generally, if someone comes in and speaks to me and says, I've got about 400 to spend. I was looking at the Squire standard range. I sort of tend to recommend that they spend a little bit less and go for one of the high-end Squires. I think they're better.
Oh, you mean Fender standard?
Fender standard.
Fender standard. Sorry. I mean, sorry. Did I say Squire standard?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. If someone comes in, says, I'm looking at, 400. I think they're like 410 for a Fender standard Strat or a Fender standard Tele. And honestly, I think you're better spending about 300 quid and getting one of the Squires, the classic vibe stuff, and then spending the rest on, making sure you've got a good gig bag or a hard case or a good cable, because even if you buy one of the standard series stuff, they don't come with a case or a bag. You just get it in a box.
Yeah, and that stuff is important. I mean,
it
certainly
really is,
if we're talking about starting a band,
absolutely,
I think we have to allow budget for cases and transport and things like that.
And I mean, the less spent on guitars, the more you can buy on pedals.
No. I would say, we'll get onto that. But I mean, I would say that is a good bit of advice. Is that if you've got a limited budget, it is worth carefully, thinking carefully about what guitar you get and maybe saving some of that to go towards the amp. Because I think actually the jump from like a practice amp up to a gigging amp is massive.
Yeah.
Whereas the jump from say your first like Affinity Strat or Affinity Tele up to something that's giggable, actually there isn't that much of a jump.
No, I agree.
No.
I think there's.
We are very much specifically just mentioning people that want to play, Jaguar Strats or Teles or P basses or jazz basses right now, and there is a load of others.
Of course, but just as an example, or the jump from say the starter Epiphone, which I guess would be the
that's kind of
Special
I want to
2.
mention a few of those, and maybe we should mention some Ibanez's and things.
So we've talked about the Squire Affinities, but Epiphone do some really good budget guitars as well.
They do,
and we know people that gig with those.
Yep.
We know people that go and take
you've
those.
got a mate who uses a Les Paul Junior.
He uses a Les Paul
Special 2. That's what I meant.
He's got an Epiphone Les Paul Special 2. That band probably plays 100 to 150 gigs a year.
He's changed the pickups in it. Though,
yeah,
is that right?
He changed the pickup to a nail bomb, I think, the bridge pickup from the stock pickup to a nail bomb. But that guitar those guitars are about the Epiphone Les Paul Special 2s.
I think when you bought it was 99 quid.
I think they were £99. I think they're now 129.
Something like that.
It was about 3-4 years ago. But yeah, they're of a reasonable budget, and you can get a decent pickup. Those bare knuckle nail bombs are wicked. Really, really good pickups.
They're what, 100 quid?
I don't even think they're that much, actually.
It's not far off the price of the guitar, though. I mean, by about 30 quid.
But you can do that, and you're still spending less money than if you were buying,
Well, I mean, for me, I was sitting down and playing guitar yesterday in a rare moment of quietness in the store, and I played the Squire Cab Bonita. We haven't had one in for ages, just the one without the Bigsby.
Yeah.
And I was like, these guitars are 228 quid. They've got the same pickups in.
Yeah,
They
it's
put
still
in
the
the Mexican,
Fidelitron, isn't it?
the same one they put in the Mexican built one.
Yeah.
And I was like, you could gig and record with this, no problem. It feels solid when you play it. It's really resonant. And 228 quid. I was thinking, you don't even need to change the pickups. They're so good.
The pickups are good. In the Fidelitron, so this is something worth sort of backtracking here. Fender own Gretsch, or distribute them at least.
No, they own them.
Do they own them? Okay,
Yeah.
so Fender own Gretsch, and one of the big iconic pickups with Gretsch is the Filtertron. And when a couple of years ago, Fender released this guitar called the Cabronita, which was a Telecaster with a TV Jones Filtertron, essentially, in the bridge and the neck, and they were so popular that they then mass produced them for the Mexican guitar market, and then they were so popular that Squier produced them, and it is the same pickup, which is a Fender built copy of the Filtertron that's in the Mexican guitars and the Squier guitars, and they sound so good.
They're a really good option if you were looking for something to just kind of get you up and running that is a kind of rough and ready guitar, I guess. I mean, not even rough, it's just it doesn't have a lot of tonal variety because it doesn't have a tone control.
It does.
Right?
It's got what master volume, master tone.
Master volume, master tone. I guess that would be an option because that is like sub the kind of money you want to be spending if you want to go out and start gigging. And like you say, they're a really solid option.
I mean, the thing is, you put like, does quality matter? And I think, especially in here, I kind of don't think you can buy a bad guitar.
Not from us.
Well, not for. That's what I mean, though. For if you come in here, no matter what your budget, I think you can walk away with something that you could realistically go out and gig, out and use.
I mean, I think the certainly Squier introducing classic vibe and vintage modified to an extent has moved the goalposts of where a guitar starts being professional, and we've seen loads of other companies rise to that challenge. Ibanez have got a plethora of stuff that you can get for sub £300 now, which is incredibly.
And all the Yamaha Pacifica stuff as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and even
Yamaha
still owned by Fender, but I've
Yamaha?
No, sorry, no. I was about to mention a different band.
Oh, okay.
Still owned by Fender, but I've been listing them for the last 2 days, and all the JS series Jackson stuff are brilliant, and especially like some of their dinkies, from the fact that you can get like quilt style tops on their JS series entry level stuff.
Just a lot of the vintage series Epiphones that are coming out now, like 61 SGs in Pell and Blue with a Maestro, and like some of the 339s. I mean, for not a lot of money, like a 339 Pro, they've got Alnico classic pickups in, which are exactly the same build as classic 57s. They're amazing guitar with coil taps as well. They're like £350.
Well, exactly, and Ibanez Art Cores giving Epiphone a run for its money.
And along the same sort of lines, you've got all the Epiphone dots. You're only looking at what $299, and if you want to get
Dot Studio.
The Dot Studio, I think is $229.
Ridiculous.
That's a great guitar. Again, the Dot Studio is a little bit more. Stripped back. They're satin finish, and the pickups are uncovered.
Perfect for a DeLong fan.
You've only got master volume, master tone, but perfect for the DeLong fan is the 333, which is the
which
Tom
were
DeLong.
also super cheap. I forgot any of those left.
They were super cheap. I don't know. I think we've still got a couple of them left.
I think it is worth mentioning that all the things we're talking about are giggable. There's like you're saying,
absolutely.
Matt, you're kind of saying there's no bad guitar really for this kind of.
Well, I mean, I certainly think in here, there may be some other mysterious brands out there, but I think you stick to kind of the major players and the people that we deal with, like Squier, Jackson, Epiphone. I think whether you spend £100 or whether you spend, say, if our capped limit is £350 or £400, I think no matter what you buy in that range, you could get a guitar, you could go out and gig that night easily.
Do you think it's because the customer is much more informed now than they were, say, like 10 years ago, before the explosion of the internet or broadband internet, certainly, and the kind of the amount of information that's available to people now? Do you think if something, for example, Fender were to bring out something cheap and nasty, do you think that would, people knowing about that would be proliferated so much easier that Fender basically can't afford to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that, and this is something that we've mentioned before, is companies are a lot more accountable nowadays because you've got Twitter and because you've got Facebook. If you're unhappy with somebody about something, you can post it on the internet. If you've got 500 followers on Twitter, if you sort of say, I bought this guitar I bought this Fender guitar and it was rubbish, I bet you Fender would get in touch and be like, okay, what's the issue here? Let's get this sorted. Yeah. Probably not. It's the fact that everything is so open nowadays. People, there's there's no room for bad customer service. There is no room for bad customer service, and there's no room for cutting back and cutting corners. And as well as important as the internet has been for the openness of information for people, I think it's equally as important for making companies realise just how accountable they are, and also making these companies realise that the consumer is only 140 characters away.
Yeah.
You know?
But also that lends itself to kind of advocacy as well. So, for example, when the Squire Bass 6 came out, and everyone was kind of shouting about it, it's almost the kind of like the hunger and the hype around it is almost exponential.
Yeah.
Because people are going, oh, I got this Bass 6, the quality's incredible for the money, and then, you know, like you say, if that goes out to another 500 people, then suddenly it's like, oh, I've been wanting a Bass 6 for ages. They've only just done one. What, they're 290 quid or whatever they are. Yeah, I think that's made a huge difference. Whereas before, you know, you'd kind of tell your couple of mates, oh, don't buy Squire, or don't buy whatever brand because you've had a bad experience.
I think there's now more people now. I think people now have more guitars than people ever did before. Like 40, 50 years ago, you probably bought one guitar, and then that was a guitar you just had forever because there wasn't that much range. Now there's just so much out there, and such good quality. People can go, yeah, I'm going to buy this Epiphone, and I'm going to buy that Squire, and you know.
Even I've got like 6 guitars, or maybe 7. I can't even remember how many I've got. Like, you know.
And you're rubbish.
I'm terrible at guitar, like really bad. But you know, it is exactly what you say. These things are, you know, bad news travels very, very fast, and I think that has certainly made mine and Matt's job much easier.
Yeah.
Especially over the last couple of years, because bad news travels so fast. You know, all these companies are afraid to make any mistakes, and because they're afraid to make mistakes, the quality of everything is going up. You know, it's really promising.
So what we're saying is basically almost everything that you could buy from us is giggable.
Yeah.
Just dependent on your budget, really. You know,
and depending on what you like. I mean, you know, I would say if someone's maybe played for a little bit and they're like, yeah, I want to get my first proper guitar, I'm going to gig with it, but I'm still on a limited budget. You know, try a Strat, try a Les Paul, try an Ibanez. You know, just try a couple of different, whichever one feels good for you. If it feels good and you think it sounds good, then you know you can go out and gig it. You know,
I saw.
There's no limitations really.
And the build quality is not going to let you down, is it? Like the build quality on pretty much everything we do, I would say, is giggable.
If you had to pick one entry level guitar, actually, sorry, you were going.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say I saw. I know that like all of the Letterman video. This is a product of YouTube. All of the Letterman videos have been getting a lot of broadcasts recently. So
can I just say I hate that Future Islands
that's
band,
not what I was going to to talk about actually.
I know
you hate that. I know you hate
them
that Future
so
Island.
much.
I know. I don't really get it, but anyway, that's not what I was going to talk about. A few months ago, that band Parquet Courts played on Letterman. Letterman is like a great big US show. He's kind of like, I guess, an equivalent talk show host would be like the Jonathan Ross show maybe, or Graham Norton, like that. Like he's a household name in the US. I mean, people who listen to this probably know that. But that band Parquet Courts played, did a song at the end of Letterman, and the guitarist of Parquet Courts was using from what I'm almost 100%, it was one of the Affinity Telecasters, one of the Butterscotch Affinity Telecasters.
Nice.
That guitar is like £150
going out,
and that band had, not only were they on Letterman going out to millions upon millions of people, that record that they put out was I think it was Pitchfork's possibly #1 choice, like best record of last year. NME had it up there, The Guardian had it up there. You know, this is a massive band, a massive indie band, and they're using guitars that cost less than £200.
Joe, I think you were going to ask which one we pick for starters.
Just because we're being so general, and the idea of this is that we, make educated suggestions on things.
Well, educated. We suggest things.
Yeah, we suggest things. Okay, so maybe if we all pick something, if there was an entry level guitar that for you individually you think stands above the rest.
Do we have a budget here?
Well, just entry level. So I guess we're looking at
£300 quid,
around the £300 mark. Night.
If I was going to walk in and I was like, I want something different, there'd be two tellies that I would potentially walk away with, and that would either be the Cabronita or the Tele Custom with the P90s, because I just think they're just awesome guitars, amazing necks.
The sort of standard series ones.
Standard series, but with the P90s.
Yeah, they're cool.
I mean, because I'd probably play it. I'd go, neck feels really nice. It's satin neck. P90 sound different. You know, still it's almost cross between having something with single coils and something with like loads of oomph, like a humbucker.
Jay?
I guess without wanting to read too much into it, this is kind of a difficult question, because if we're trying to just sort of have a catch-all variable here for, you know, not all guitars suit all types of music.
No, that's true.
We speak to a lot of people who are into a lot of different things. You know, like someone who's into jazz probably isn't going to want a Telecaster, and someone who's into metal probably isn't going to want a Telecaster, but you know what I mean. Like,
yep.
there's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's a wide, but just one that you think maybe people should check out.
For me, the first guitar I always, if you're saying that you want something that's really good value for money, that's a good budget, I always recommend the classic vibe stuff. Be it the Strat or the Tele, depending on what it is that you're after. The classic vibe stuff is so good, such good value for money. My personal favourite is the 50s. The classic vibe 50s Tele.
If only they made a Squire Esquire.
Yeah. I'd probably buy one of those. But you know, I think that the classic vibe 50s Tele is absolutely wicked. But if you want something a bit more versatile, then the classic vibe Strats, I think are just so good for the money.
I'll pick a guitar quick. I guess you want to do a bass.
Yeah, I'll do a guitar and a bass very quickly.
Okay, yeah, go on then.
Yeah, me first?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, cool. For guitar, mainly just because I've got so much to do with them at the moment, Jackson have released these limited edition JS23 dinkies.
Size, yeah.
Yeah, wicked. Yeah, just your simple sort of
Super Strat type thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's an HSS.
Yeah, okay.
But they do it in like a natural finish. You know, it still has a compound radius. You know, it looks wicked for what it is. I think they're made out of what they made out of. I think it might be poplar.
You've got the picture up there. They look really good.
It's basswood, yeah, and you can get it in fluorescent yellow, which is really cool. If you want something weird, you can get it in fluorescent yellow, and I would do that.
That's not weird.
They do
it's
it
cool.
in natural, and it looks really smart, like really smart. It does not look like what it costs, which is 179 quid.
Wow, that is cheap.
That's really
so
good.
I just think like something that's really cool and just a little bit different. That if it was going to be a bass, you know, we've spoken about them loads before, but we've actually considered it as one of the best basses that you can get at the moment, which is the Squire Matt Freeman precision bass.
It's so good, but
isn't
that a little over budget?
Slightly over budget. Yeah. If you had to fall into budget, then I'd go for the vintage modified stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, Jay, you did gig one of those. Right? I mean, I
the
borrowed it.
The 70s jazz bass. I used that. I mean, I probably played 100 gigs with that. I thought it was great.
The same thing that what you pointed out about your friend with the Les Paul Special 2 is jazz basses and P basses fall into that same category where all their parts are so incredibly changeable. So with a jazz bass, you could whip out even the volume and tone controls and pop in like a separate. You could pop in a concentric if you like, something really groovy, and then, you know, get a couple of cool jazz bass pickups, and there are tons of them out there, and they're not really much money. You can pick up like the Seymour Duncan quarter pounders are something like 40 quid each for the bridge
so
and
cheap.
the neck.
That's so cheap.
Exactly. So get a couple of those, pop in a concentric if you really want to have something, you know, cool on your tone controls, and then you know the rest of those jazz basses are just wicked. And there are so many finishes because they do the 70s and they do the 77 now, and they also do just the standard vintage.
The 77 is black, isn't it? Is it black with block inlays?
Well, it's black. You can also get it in sunburst black scratch, and then it's pearl block inlays on a maple neck on that. The 70s is black block inlays.
I honestly think that there's in the Fender range, unless you want different spec, I think in between something like the Matt Freeman and an American Standard, there's not really that much to look at. No. Like the Matt Freeman and the vintage modified jazz, if you want to spend less than 500 quid, go for those. If you can spend more than 500 quid, spend 1,100 quid or whatever they are.
No,
you
it's
know,
totally true. It's totally true. It's a hard comparison there with basses because I think the Matt Freeman also stands up better if you put it next to something like the 50s reissue, just because it's a classic styled one. And there are differences. You want to look at the Standard, then you're looking at something that's got a satin finish neck. It's going to have that big substantial bridge. The truss rod's going to be really easy to access. It will have all those little sort of modern features to make it comfortable. which isn't so much a consideration of kind of classic style guitars, but up next to the 50s, you would not believe that there is £300
You've got a 50s, don't you?
Yeah, I've got a 50s P bass. Yeah, exactly. And the Freeman would, if I needed another one, I would easily buy that rather than like buying a second 50s. So
Yeah.
They're really great.
I just want to, we mentioned it before, but I just wanted to point out that the Epiphone Dots are unbelievable for the money. If you're looking at something that is very different from, a Strat or a Telly or even a Les Paul, it's the first real hollow body that you should be looking at that kind of money.
I mean, I think it's worth spending the extra money over the Dot Studio. If your budget is seriously tight, then the Dot Studio is great. But I think it's an extra £70. I can't remember offhand, but I think it's
worth doing.
I think it's $299 for a Dot, and I think it's $229 for a Dot Studio.
Worth doing because you get a volume and a tone for each
pickup. Yeah,
and better finish and nice. How about amps? Go on. What were you going to say?
Well, I've while you guys have been talking, I've pulled up 3 possible amps for discussion that I thought I'd list out,
good.
and then I thought...
And amps is a weird one, really, because there's a lot of amps in between, say, 10 or 15 watts and 50 watts, and people kind of...
Are we talking valve here?
No, I would say transistor at the moment.
Okay.
It is a bit of a funny one because really less than 50 watts transistor, I guess, won't really gig that well.
Well, I mean, I think we might get into this a little bit more with PA because obviously you might mic stuff up and stuff like that. But I think generally, it probably for the kind of size gigs you might be doing, I think they'll probably be all right. I mean, the thing is that if it was me, maybe I would spend a lot more on an amp than I might spend on a guitar if I've already had experience playing. Yeah. I'm assuming that we're kind of going, right, a minimum start a band, I've already had a couple of years worth of playing experience. I'm going to buy a whole load of new gear. Then, maybe if you think, well, I've got £1,000 is my budget to get everything that I need, pedals, whatever, then I would say, spend a couple of £300 on a guitar, but maybe spend £500 on an amp, so you can go up to a smallish valve amp.
I think that was the general consensus when we did the series of how can I sound like this for $1,000.
I think the thing is though, with £500 that I tend to find still anyways, that like 400 to 500 is a really odd price bracket because you either get lower priced amps that are quite big transistor amps, or you get much more expensive amps that are either generally a little bit smaller valve, or and when you go up to a valve, they tend to have less features as well. So I think sometimes you think, well, do I want to kill 2 birds with 1 stone? And
I mean, there's 3 at that kind of price. You could be looking at either a high powered transistor with not many features, or a kind of medium powered like digital modelling amp that's got loads of features, or a low powered valve amp. I guess that's the so basically, if we're looking at one of each of those, I guess
I've pulled up 3. I've gone for 3 solid state amps that I thought we could quickly discuss, just because they're all quite different. So first one, £246, Fender Mustang 3.
Okay.
Good, a lot of features. You can save presets. You can have a floorboard.
So that's got amp modelling and effects.
And effects as well.
And USB connectivity.
So great for recording. It's 100 watts. So there's a lot in there.
My problem. Okay, I don't mean to interject here, but my problem with the Mustang amps, if we're looking at something for live use, is I just think they're a little bit obtuse. I think that if you want something for home use and something you can mess around with and something you can put effect upon effect, and you would never get bored with a Mustang amp at home. I think using live, you'd need to have the control. You'd need to have the foot controller.
Yeah, you would. I mean, you wouldn't use it. You wouldn't buy and have all of that and then just have one setting that you would kind of just use. But I would say, if you were going to use effects as well, and you kind of wanted it live and you wanted some bits and pieces, then I'd say buy that and buy the foot controller. But I've thrown in a couple of other ones which actually I think are pretty good choices. Most expensive one, Vox AC30 VR. So valve preamp, solid state power amp.
Isn't it the other way around?
No.
Okay.
No, always it would be a solid power. And then you'll like this one, Mark, classic, £250. Peavey Bandit 112.
Yeah.
I mean, 100 watts, or 80 watts, and you can plug an additional speaker in, like 2 channels, clean and lead.
I would go
and a speaker simulated DI.
I would literally go for that every time.
Would you go for that over the I think it's a what were you saying? What was the budget?
Well, we
Did you have a
around-
budget?
Well, we said like 500
I
quid,
mean,
maybe.
if you were looking at a solid state amp that you could gig with, for me, the Orange Crush.
yeah,
Yeah,
That's
we missed
another
out.
good-
And don't forget the Crush Pro.
yeah.
Crush Pro is
The
probably
Crush, well, the new Crush series, the Crush Pro series. So like the
let's bring up the
CR60, the CR60
Yeah, that's
is
it,
what,
isn't it?
$299?
349 1x12 combo. Obviously comes in black. Or,
Oh yeah, $299 for the
orange.
head, I think, isn't it?
Okay, so my thoughts on that would be the orange sounds very nice, but they have got a very distinct sound. They sound like orange amp sound, very British, very kind of mid-rangey.
Yeah.
They don't do clean particularly.
Well, this depends on what band you're in then.
Well, yeah, of course. But for me, I'm saying I would
Alright.
go for the Bandit because it's a bit more versatile. It's got a much more American drive sound, which, to be honest, I prefer. Like slightly fatter bottom end, slightly less mid-range, and I just think Peavey stuff is super solid. Not saying that the orange isn't, but there's something about those Peavey Bandits that I just absolutely love and have done since like all my mates' older brothers had one in like 1995.
I mean, I think the thing is obviously we're doing like a general umbrella, as it were, because obviously the style of music. But then again, you know, we could say go for an amp that's got a good clean, good drive, and then you can tailor what sort of thing you might be doing with it with pedals.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, for the money, I think they're really good choices. Or if you're going to spend a little bit more money, buy a Blues Junior. But I'm trying to ignore that.
It all comes back to the Blues Junior.
I think that's the thing, though. If you go, you breach into that territory of kind of like valve amps, and valve amps generally have less on them, and at that price they're generally less power and they're a little bit smaller. So you know, I'd say if you're starting a band and you're going, cool, I want some solid kit to start a band with, then I'd go for a bigger solid state combo.
Yeah, I think I would as well. Actually, if what I'm picturing this whole podcast to be kind of aimed at is someone who's doing like a fairly local pub or like a small like hall, like for their first gig.
Yeah.
I think a Blues Junior, because it's probably not going to be mic'd up at that stage.
No.
I think a Blues Junior is going to be too small. I think we're better off something super sturdy, super reliable, loud enough, flexible enough. Peavey Bandit 112.
Yeah, that is definitely and for 250 quid.
It's a classic.
Why haven't you got one? That should be the
because I don't need anything that big.
It's a real problem for basses. This
Well,
question.
When I used to work in the bass department, I would always say to people, do you want a practice amp or do you want a gigging amp? Because there's no middle ground. People say, "Oh, I want something for home, but I might do a gig every now and then."
Yeah, and it just doesn't exist on bass. And do you know the problem is actually that you actually bringing up one of the things I would speak about. Obviously, I think it's one of the few things that exist. But people will come in and say, "I've got 300 quid to spend. I need my first gigging amplifier."
It's the danger area for bass amps.
Yeah, it's terrible because there is nothing available that's giggable for 300 quid, and 300 quid's a perfectly reasonable amount of money. Hell, we're just talking about a perfectly giggable, an incredibly giggable amp in the Peavey Bandit for 250 quid. But for bass, it's such a dead point because, of course, for bass, combos are much less kind of available than. We're a much more sort of separate head, separate cabinet kind of instrument than guitars. So combos aren't made as much, and those combos that do exist tend to be, combos are stuff like the Mark Bass
Jeff
CMD
Berlin or something.
121.
Exactly what I was saying. Exactly
like £900.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what I was.
The Orange Terror combo, which is again sort of 900 quid. Those are the bass combos that exist.
I think the problem with bass stuff at that price point is you need a lot more power. You need a much bigger box, and you also need just better performance to deliver that kind of volume.
Matt's actually bringing up one of the things that I think is a bit of a problem area in the Orange Crush Picks. The Crush Pick CR100 DXT, which kind of hits, it comes in at like £334, but it's 100 watts, and at 100 watts I'm like, that probably won't compete with a drum kit, despite the fact it's in quite a big unit. It's almost this weird sort of illusionary halfway point where it looks big enough to gig, but I promise it won't. You need to. People come in and ask, and I'm like, well, you need something that's going to be 250 watts plus. 250 watts.
It's kind of why you don't see a 100-watt bass head.
No,
that just doesn't exist. because you go. The smallest heads we do pretty much are 250 watts.
Yeah.
And at the top end of things, they're 2,000 watts. They're just there's no need for a 100-watt bass amp because you either go for a practice amp at home or you go for something where you gig. So you go for a much more powerful combo or you go for a head and cab setup.
Exactly. So the first people to kind of breach that gap and deal with the fact that a lot of people are turning up with 300 quid is TC Electronic. With the BG 250 series, which they're 250 watt solid state head shoved into either a 15-inch cabinet. You can get it in a 210. I think they've released a 212 now or a 112.
Yeah.
And that's it. But yeah, the 15's obviously sort of your bread and butter one. They're like 345 quid, something like that. Comes with tone print. You've got 2 tone print channels now. I know we've spoken about this combo quite a bit on the podcast, but in that time they've redesigned it and brought it out now with 2 tone print
I think the good thing about a lot of these ones, especially with bass amps as well, which we'll get onto a little bit with PAs, that they have a really good DI out. So if you've got a half decent little system as well, you can just DI straight out.
And same as the Mustang, you can foot control it because it comes with it's got a tuner on it, which is great if we're talking about like first band, first gigs. Having a tuner on there's useful. You can foot pedal out because it has a drive channel on there, which is very useful. They're just really good. But as kind of an amp to start the ball rolling, it's one of the only things out there. Galen and Kruger have released some great stuff at around the 200 watt mark with their MB series. But yeah, for combos, it's really slim pickings on the bass front, a really difficult area.
I'd just buy a TC one.
Yeah,
it's going to be good.
The only other one I would mention is the new Fender Rumble 200, which actually very, very. Oh wow! Yeah, okay.
It's my stuff pick. Dude.
Oh well, okay. Well,
no. Let's go. I'll think on my feet. I'll think on my feet.
No, let's not get into it. We'll do that as your staff pick. That segues nicely into pedals.
Okay.
Matt, now the sentence that I've written here: pedals, are they essential? Is a pedal tuner the minimum you need? The reason I've written this is because that is the truth.
I think I spat on the screen when I read this.
Well, right. So far you've walked in. You've bought. All right. Let's say you've bought a Les Paul Special 2 or a Dot. Let's say you've bought one of those two.
Yeah. So you spent maybe between 200 and
then.
Oh no, between 150 and 300 quid.
So I'm going for guitars here, Joe. I looked at you and was like, so I'm just talking general guitars. And then you've gone and bought a Peavey Bandit. Comes with a foot switch, 2 channels. So you've got clean, drive, and you've got your amp.
And reverb on off.
Apparently, if you've bought a Dot and a Peavey Bandit, then you're Mark Packham, and so you don't buy any other pedals.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if you, depending on what type of music you do, in a way, you're right. I mean, I definitely would go, do I need a guitar? Can I just make noise by holding down the end of the jack plug? Run through 10 delay pedals and a whammy.
The worst thing is you actually did that band.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and it was great.
Yeah, I put you on, didn't I?
Yeah.
I would say the minimum that you need is a pedal tune. I think if in a gigging situation,
be in tune.
Well, yeah. Especially for guitarists. Like I've pretty much got away with it for the last few years because my pedal tuner
and your bass doesn't really go out of tune.
My bass never goes out of tune. It's the most solid bass ever made.
Oh, I hate you.
I've done it without a tuner, and I've tuned up at the beginning on like a little crappy handheld tuner, and it's kind of been alright. But,
but it's not professional.
I know.
Well,
I realise that I'm winging it. I think you need a tuner.
I just don't think we should allow people who are in punk bands to have opinions on professionality. I don't think it's
right. So you got to buy a tuner.
I think you have to.
But we all agree you need a tuner. I just realised that
I've
been winging it, and it's been very stupid.
But the thing is, TU3s are £59.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they're crazy cheap at the moment.
When did that happen?
When I started here 5 years ago, they were 79 quid.
Yeah.
Everything's going up. Why?
Down.
Why is like the best?
Oh, I see.
No. Everything else is going up. Why is the best tuner on the market coming down?
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But they're
so
59
it's now the
quid
cheapest
now.
one out of all the main.
And it is still the best one. You've got a Polytune, and I know you really like the Polytune, and the Korg one is the Korg. The thing about the Pitch Black, which is the Korg tuner, it was always a very good alternative if you didn't want to spend the money and buy a Boss TU2, I guess, at the time. And now Korg have sort of gone, actually, we're kind of not competing with the TU3. We're kind of not competing with Boss anymore. We want to take away. We want people who want that polyphonic tuning. We want people to buy a Korg pitch black instead of a polytune. And I don't think they look as good.
Thing is, I would probably still have a TU3. I just now don't have the space to put a TU3 on my pedal.
You can take the polytune off. You don't have to have 2 tuners on there.
But here is the solution. You could do what I do on my pedal board, but I don't have the room for a tuner. If we're going to talk about, what's the minimum pedals you can have, I've got a Line 6 M5, which I use as my tuner.
Yeah.
So, 85 quid, you've got every effect ever and a tuner. Surely, what a fantastic partner to.
Is this podcast just going to end up into? Is this going to dissolve into another hour of us talking about the M5? Yeah. Is that what is it?
But actually, that raises a good point, because as me and Mark were talking earlier, and then it suddenly made me think, if we were talking about pedals, I would say buy a Boss ME80.
Yeah, I mean,
I know. All right, okay. So, all right. So we're going into something that's probably a little bit more complex, really. Maybe if you're just starting a band.
Yeah, you don't need to spend that.
But kind of, if you want everything in, or an ME25. It depends. I suppose you kind of got to think, what do I want? What sounds do I possibly want to create, really? And if it was me, then I'd probably buy like a DS1, a TU3, and a DD3, and you've kind of got a.
It's a really solid little pedal board that's done people really well for years.
30 in a moulded plastic
where do you
case.
put your RE20?
No, Jay.
Where do you put the Space Echo?
Anyway, personal allegiances to pedals aside, I would say that a tuner is minimum. That is what you need to get gigging.
Yeah.
If you're going out and you want to go into that professional situation.
Not for bass, but yeah, for guitars.
Well, I think that is the minimum. I know that you'll say you need some sort of preamp.
No, you need a compressor.
You don't need a compressor.
You do need a compressor.
Just play harder with a pick. I would say.
Hey, you did your first ever bass demo today.
Yeah, I did.
Because we were doing a bass that if we'd have done
that
fingerstyle would have got some flack. So.
What was it?
I can't play with the plectrum.
It was the Mike Dirnt Road Worn P-Bass.
I can't play with the plectrum, so we had to get.
Anyway,
to do the demo.
So I would say that for guitar or bass, stage tuner, pedal tuner is the minimum that you need. But there's plenty of room if you want to expand on that. Kind of pedals you can go as crazy as you want, but minimum good T3.
Good feature about T3 as well, because it mutes the output when you stand on it. So if you're making, you make a mistake or something's going horribly wrong, at least just you can mute
tread
everything.
on it.
Yeah, or you can do manual tremolo.
Just stamp up and down. It's good for 1 million. So unless you've got a really long song, it'd be fine. How about? So I guess the last. We're not going to talk about drums because we don't know anything about drums. But I thought it would be good to talk about PA.
Yeah. I've pulled up a couple of.
Well, so
bits.
I would imagine that the sort of gigs that we're doing at the moment, and worth mentioning that all of us pretty much do like originals bands. We don't take our own PA. Like, we just use the in-house stuff.
Yeah.
What sort of band do you think would probably need to take their own PA? I guess it's like covers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I did a covers band for a long time, you take your own PA because most venues just want entertainment, but they don't want to fork out for all the equipment effectively.
Okay. I thought it was a legal prerequisite if you were
Prerequisite.
Yeah.
Prerequisite.
Yeah.
Prerequisite.
What's wrong with saying it like
No,
that?
it's
I
fine.
don't know,
Carry on.
I've never heard it say like that
Oh,
before.
really?
Sorry, I don't mean
I
to
think I've
interject.
always said it like that.
I
Carry
don't
on.
mean to interject.
What's the prerequisite?
The prerequisite is that is weird, isn't it? I thought all venues that were PRS certified had to provide a PA. I think that's part of the deal.
I don't think that is.
No,
I
it
don't
can't
think
be.
it's true.
No.
Because there was changes in licensing a couple of years ago. That was, I can't remember. It was called the changes to the Live Music Act, which because previously, if now I'm not 100% certain on this, but I seem to recall that previously, anyone could have live music you could do live music anywhere as long as it was only 2 standing musicians, which I think included the drummer.
What if they're sitting down?
Which I think included the drummer. I think you needed, but I think the wording of it was 2 standing musicians. So
Okay.
2 musicians, be it drums and guitar. I think you could do that anywhere. I think the law changed a couple of years ago, which actually sort of opened that up a little bit and meant that you could have live music pretty much anywhere as long as it wasn't, as long as it complied with sort of, you weren't getting in anybody's noise complaints or whatever. I don't think in-house PAs need to be a thing. I've certainly.
Well, certainly,
Okay,
if you think
fair enough.
like
Done shows
a lot of
where
wedding venues, I guess a lot of them will have music, so they must have a PA a PRS license, but they probably won't have their own PA, like a giggable PA. So what? I mean, I guess the kind of bands that we're talking about would be covers bands, and I would say that most people would just want maybe 2 like mid-top speakers, and then maybe 1 sub, something like that.
I've pulled out a couple of different systems here. I mean, I don't know what we're talking about budget-wise.
Well, budget with PA kind of spirals, and I guess that's different to our.
So
it's different to our. What do I need to start a band? Because it's mainly that would be like a group purchase, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose I would say right. So maybe if you're like a smaller act, and maybe you've kind of like a couple of just people going out and gigging acoustic guitar and a bass or something like that, and you've got your amps. Like a PV Escort system, because everything.
Yeah, the PV Escorts.
They are $550.
Well, see, if you're only a couple of people, and you want something that will cope with just 2 people, I'd definitely always go with the Roland BA330.
Yeah, very nice.
Because they're about 500 quid.
The only thing with that is if you're playing in a venue, you've got no stereo spread, which I think would be better.
But they've got like the speakers are set off at an angle to each other, so they do spread out. I know what you're saying, but if it's for I think the BA330 is a really great unit. I really like the BA330. I think that it's good for sort of not even just live music, but people who need something for like conferences and relatively quiet. I mean, I used one for one of my mates' weddings. It was outside in rural Sussex, and we had it absolutely blasting, and it was so loud. Everyone could dance, everyone could still talk. It got over everybody's sort of shouting voices, and it was great. I think it would be really good for like smallish acoustic tax. I don't think it would suffice for a full band.
Yeah.
But I mean, I agree. I mean, the same with like a Yamaha Stage Pass system. But actually, looking into it, if you were a band and you were like, right, we're all going to club together a little bit of money and we're going to put together a PA, you could actually put together a decent PA system for not a lot of money at all.
What are we looking at? Something like the Mackeys?
No. Surprisingly enough, Peavey Messenger Pro 12s.
Yeah.
145 quid a speaker.
Okay.
Right?
Passive or active?
Yeah, so they're passive, so you need a powered mixer. So powered mixers start at 140 quid.
Okay.
For like a PV, also for a PV one. I mean, PV's kind of, they've done a lot in this sort of range, really. Or if you spend 300 quid, you get a PVI 8. So 8 inputs, so plenty enough for miking up, having mics, miking up amps, and maybe even having one on the drum kit with effects, fully powered. That's 700 watts total. You can power 2 450s and even a sub. And even then, I mean, they're 300 quid, 600 quid, and
so for less than $1,000, you're looking
for
at
less than $1,000, you can pick up some.
And then
really
you're allowing a couple of $100 quid for a couple of decent SM58s or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say if everyone's got a budget of 300 quid for a guitar, 500 quid for an amp, and then that leaves you 200 quid each in a 5-piece band, for example, to put it towards a PA. Yeah. That's $1,000. Then I would say $1,000 is the minimum you need to spend on a decent PA that you could take everywhere in the back of a van. So if you turn up and a venue's got a rubbish PA system, you can unload yours and it's ready to go.
Excellent. Well, that's everything covered, apart from drums. But
just buy an electronic drum
drums.
kit or a Roland TB03 or whatever it is.
TR8.
Hey! There's a kick drum on the ME50B.
No, I got one. What about the what are those little Korg, like not the hand sonics, the smaller ones, the mini wave drums?
Oh yeah.
They've got a little clip that you can put in your shoe, and then that programs a bass sound, so like a bass drum sound. So every time you move your foot,
just get a
RC3's got a percussion section.
TR8.
Get a Boss ME50B, the kick drum on it,
or just
or beatbox.
Find one of your mates with nothing better to do and train to be a drummer.
Everyone's got one.
Everyone's got one. Everyone knows one. should we do some stuff picks before we get a barrage of hate from drummers?
I don't think drummers listen to this
Drummers
podcast.
will be listening.
Some of them might be guitar curious. You never know.
Dave Grohl.
Dave Grohl might listen.
I think Dave Grohl probably listens.
If Dave Grohl's listening, just drop us an email.
Please get it down.
podcast@gok.uk.
Do you know,
We would
both,
really like to
both
have
the
you.
other members in my band are drummers. The guitarist is a drummer first.
Drummers.
Do they listen to this podcast?
No.
Thank God. For that. Let's do some stuff picks. Jay Cross, what have you been playing this week?
This week, I've been playing a small amp, a small,
Fender Blues Jr.
I've been playing a small amp, sub 30 watts.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a Blues Junior.
Okay, it's knowing you. It is a Vox AC30 or AC15.
It's not an AC15.
Okay, is it a Roland Street Cube?
It's not even a Roland Street Cube. I have been playing the Lionheart L20.
The Laney.
The Laney Lionheart L20. I really like this amp.
Why wouldn't you? Laney are wicked.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, let's travel back in time a little bit. We've gone back about 6 months. I think Laney are really uncool.
Right.
But I don't think I'm in the minority here. I think Laney get a very, very bad rep.
They're blue with vintage toys.
No. Wait, we've gone back 6
We're
months.
back 6 months.
Okay.
Didn't you hear the?
Sorry, I just...
I think Laney are one of these companies, like Peavey, and others, who get unnecessarily a very bad rep. And recently I've had this vision, this fire vision, and I don't know what that means, but the Laney Lionheart is such a good little amp, a really, really good. Oh, sorry, we're back in present day now.
Right, okay,
Did you
fine.
miss that? The Laney Lionheart, as Joe says, is blue with a tweed fretcloth. The reverb sounds so good. They're just cool little amps. The thing that I like.
Whoa, tilt back.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And also the thing that really does it for me with the Lionheart stuff is they're all British made. They're made at their headstock factory in Birmingham, in their amp warehouse, which me and Mark went to a couple of months ago.
Full disclosure, they did give us some free fish and chips, but that has not swayed Jay's decision.
No, I only had chips.
Okay.
Otherwise, otherwise it would have been in the first. If they'd been
Would have been the first one back from
absolutely.
that visit.
No. I think it's great. Laney offer one of the big things for me. Now, this is perhaps a little bit selfish, but when someone comes in and they want to buy something, one of the big things for me is, okay, I don't want to sell this person something that's going to break, because when something breaks and it comes back, it's so much hassle, and I really hate dealing with stuff that's broken and hassle for returns.
So careful about what you say there.
No, and it's like, the Laney stuff comes with a 5-year warranty, and the reason it comes with a 5-year warranty is because they build it to such a high standard, they know that it isn't going to break.
We should make clear that when you say you hate when stuff comes back and the hassle of doing it, you don't hate the customer for bringing it back.
No, not in the slightest. I just hate...
You like selling stuff that doesn't break, because things shouldn't break.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's frustrating to me when stuff breaks and when I have to deal with it, and so I don't like selling stuff that might break. I like selling stuff which is why I like all the Roland stuff, because it's so reliable, and that to me, as like a gigging musician, is what's important, is reliability, even possibly over how good it sounds. Is the reliability.
Yeah, I totally agree.
There is that. I completely agree with there being a sort of a balance between the two.
Yeah, absolutely. And but the fact that the Lionheart sounds so good is just an added bonus. You know, this stuff is all British made. If there's any issues with anything, they promise that they will look at it within 48 hours and they will have it back within a week. But but there's never anything wrong with it because they offer a 5-year warranty. And the reason they offer a 5-year warranty is because it never breaks. The Lionheart stuff is a great alternative to someone who's after something, sort of clean and bluesy with that sort of Fender style drive, but with kind of a British twist to it.
They're weird, aren't they? Because they sit sort of tonally halfway between like an AC30 and like a Hot Deluxe.
Absolutely, yeah, they really are. And I just think that they're, I think a few weeks ago, or maybe a little bit longer, one of my staff picks was the Peavey Delta Blues series.
Yeah, another great sort of very similar kettle of fish.
Absolutely, and that sort of spawned from the fact that people would come in and speak to me and not want to buy a Blues Junior or an AC15, and I sort of a bit stumped, and but they still wanted something, and so I've started looking elsewhere. And honestly, the Lionheart series is so good.
Isn't it a bit funny that we credit Fender and I suppose Orange and Vox with being such kind of masters of these like traditional vintage tones as being the real sort of pioneers of this sort of thing. Laney and Peavey bother to move out of the sort of metal field for one amplifier, and both companies managed to nail it.
Yeah, they're so good, and they've got greenbacks in. Well, a single greenback. The G12. So it really acts as a halfway house between that sort of because the greenbacks are kind of mid-rangey and
very British sounding.
Very very British sounding. Very well rounded. But the amp itself kind of has that look and sort of feel of like an American clean, sort of hot rod type thing. So I really, really like the Lionheart. They're a little bit more money than, you would spend on, say, a Blues Junior or an AC15. But, the Blues Juniors are, this isn't casting aspersions on where stuff's built, but, the Blues Juniors are made in Mexico. The AC15s are made in China. The Lionhearts they're made in Birmingham. I met the fellas who make them. They're wicked, and they love amps. They love amps, and it's that for me is what keeps this sort of thing exciting. Is when you meet someone who is involved in the production of it, and you meet someone who is as excited about cool stuff as you are. That is that's really important to me, and I just think the Lionheart's a great amp.
Matt Knight, what have you been playing this week?
Well, in some sort of news, we've got new pedals, new pedal lines. So we finally, we've really upped the game thanks to Luke, our purchaser, in the last 12 months, and what kind of pedals he's done.
I was thinking about this the other day, there's not.
But this is what I've been saying for 6 years.
Well, that's true.
It does take a long time to get Luke to agree.
But there's not much that we don't do now that you would want on your board.
Yeah. There's some real nerdy super boutique stuff that we've never you hardly see anywhere. But in terms of all the best brands, I think we pretty much do them. And now we do Wampler and Full Tone.
Yeah.
Which are two brands that have been asked about loads, and we've finally got them.
Just think now, from us, you can buy Wampler, Strymon, Full Tone,
Pigtronics,
Bigfoot, Crowther,
Zvex.
Oh, it's just all the good stuff. It's all the
Plus
good.
all the Electro-Harmonics.
Yeah, all the new Electro-Harmonics that are rocking. You could still get Boss stuff from us.
Yeah.
Perfect pedal board supplier.
Yeah, I would say. And loads of pedal boards because we do pedal train as well.
How many pedals do you have now?
Don't ask him that.
I've got a bag at home that's just, there's tons just sitting in there.
That aren't on the boards?
They're just on pedal boards. And I've got a second pedal board I never plug in that's it's full of pedals. Like an actual pedal board. I was like, I'll just have this one for other gigs. So I don't even do the first gig, let alone others. So I need to gig with.
So tell us about Wampler and Full Tone.
Well, both amazing, all-American built brands, but I thought I would pick one out that kind of really stood out for me today, which is what we did some videos on, and I think Mark will agree, was the Ace 30.
It sounded absolutely incredible.
Yeah, so all made in America. Now Wampler, this guy called Brian. I think it's actually Brian Wampler. I'm almost certain.
That's the best name ever.
Yeah. I've actually followed him since he did a blog called Indie Guitarist about 10 years ago when he was just building clones.
Right, okay.
And then that kind of went into Wampler pedals, and they've kind of been building a name for themselves. And this is the latest one of their Heritage series, which, surprise, surprise, sounds like an AC30. And it's I don't know, Mark, what would you say? Kind of like a Sans amp, in the sense that if you really want to sound like a Vox,
it's like the ultimate pedal
I mean,
to
it
buy.
just sounded like a Vox in a box.
I still don't understand preamp pedals for guitars, though. Like, your amps aren't that expensive.
Yeah, but if you're plugged into a Blues Junior with a bar hard telly, and you're like, I
Then-
really like a Blues Junior, but I
if you're
really
doing
want
that, then you've spent £750, which is about the same that you can pick up an AC30
Yeah,
for.
but I kind of think that it's just
Still
nice
only
to...
single channel though.
No, but what if you want a Fender sound and an
the Vox-
AC30 sound?
Yeah, that's the thing. If you want, you're not always going to run stereo setups. Well, you'd like
Not
to.
always.
Yeah, not always.
Oh, not always. I
Sometimes.
don't always do it, but
No,
you know,
don't always.
sometimes.
And I just think
It's the dream.
I would just kind of have it on all the time. Or if you've got a pedal board and you can't always take your amp to a gig, and then you have that at kind of the front end, so you kind of set up your Vox sound, I'd just have it on all the time. It's just so chimey and bright,
It
not
did
too much
sound
gain.
absolutely
And then just have
fantastic.
the boost control when you want a bit of extra oomph.
It was really good.
Well, I have to say we had it today plugged into the Peavey Classic 50,
such a good
which
amp.
is an amp that we've got in second hand that I don't understand why it's been with us for the length of time that it has.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the best amps that we've got.
I don't understand why someone sold it to us.
Oh, wait, I know.
I'm going to try and track down a Peavey Classic 30 head. Or
Yeah?
a Peavey Classic 50
Yeah,
head, I
because
think.
they haven't. We haven't done. They discontinued them about 3 years ago or
Yeah,
so.
'cause
I mean,
they-
like I was saying about the Delta Blue stuff, the Peavey Classic stuff is so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It really is.
If it wasn't a case of space and
Money, time.
and I guess also strength, I'd have a Delta Blues 410.
Yeah. Great sounding amp.
The amp sounds so. I mean, I love the 410 configuration. Like, I'd really like a DeVille 410, a Hot Rod DeVille 410. But I like, it's just they're heavy. They're too heavy for me. I live on the second floor. I'm quite a tall guy, but I'm not
You're
very
a weak
strong.
guy.
I'm a weak dude. I'm a weak dude. I've got too many pedals to carry.
You're a lover, not a fighter.
Fun fact, the first amp that I ever plugged into that wasn't the Peavey Rage 158 practice amp at my house was a Peavey Delta Blues 410.
Great amp.
Well, I mean, I had a guy the other day who he came in, he was like, he wanted to buy a Classic 30 and we didn't have any, so I plugged him into the Classic 50. And he'd had a Peavey, I think it was like Peavey Razor or something, which is the only amp he'd ever owned since 1976. He went, that's never gone wrong.
Yeah.
It's just like, it just sounds real. I think he's like, I just kind of maybe want something else, but this amp's just served me so well for so long. I just don't know what else is out there.
It's simpler times back then, wasn't it? You couldn't really name an amp by one name anymore. 'Cause
Razor.
They've all been taken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it'd have to be Razor 74272.
Yeah.
6.
Point 3.
Is that
So
your phone
anyway,
number?
no.
But yeah, so
The Wampler Ace 30.
yeah, just an amazing sounding pedal. Just one of those. I'm really into pedals at the moment that you can kind of just leave on all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm
Like
just
the Peaktronics Class A boost.
yeah, and
just leave it on.
And the Echoplex. I'm kind of like I'm trying to find the ultimate pedal I can have on my pedal board that I can just leave on all the time.
For me, the best two pedals that I've heard this year are the Echoplex and the Ace 30.
Yeah.
Just plugged in, sound wicked, even more so than the Soul Food, which everyone is raving about at the moment. We plugged that in
Which is what we
today.
were saying last week is going now for more money than you can buy a new one. They're still a current product.
Yeah, going second hand on eBay for more money than you can buy new
No,
ones.
they're
They
not.
are.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
They're
We've
big-
still got them in stock.
Yeah, we've
though.
got them in stock.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, the Ace 30 was. I had the same thing that I had with the Echoplex, where you just played like a G chord, and I was like, that's really good.
I've not had a chance to plug one in yet because while you guys were playing Steven
good.
Spielberg downstairs, I actually had to do some work.
Yeah.
So
Just how it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe, what is your staff pick for this week?
My staff pick is the well, we've mentioned them before. We mentioned them when we were talking about kind of new products for 2014. But I'm going for the Fender Rumble 200 watt head.
Okay.
Mainly because it's the only one we've got. We haven't seen the 500 version yet, which I'm sure would be my staff pick, as I prefer things to be louder. But the 200 watt head is ridiculously loud. For 200 watts, it's one of the loudest 200 watt heads out there.
They're super efficient, aren't they? From what I heard of them from NAMM, bear in mind that it was on like a really busy show floor, and there was like people playing Smoke on the Water really loud everywhere. They sounded really, really efficient for for the sizes that they were. Even the small combos sounded much louder than they were rated at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they are really, really loud. And I mean, what I love about them is you've got lots of controls, which I quite like. You've got you've got your separate kind of input-output control. Gain and output. It's the same that you'd expect on anything. But you've also got a drive control. Plus a sort of a little push button to activate the drive, which you can have running on a foot switch if you like, which is incredibly useful. And the thing is, the drive sounds wicked for a solid state bass amp. It sounds absolutely wicked having that separate drive channel. But the amp actually sounds brilliant itself anyway, kind of the whole way up. But the drive is fantastic on it. It's got three presets, which I think are really important if you're not going to, if you don't want your amp to be in one sort of area. Like I play the orange Tiny Terror bass heads, and they are like, this is a rock head if you want to play clean.
They're chunky.
This is not the amp for you, and they're fine with that. That's what they are. So it's a 3-band EQ with a gain and an output, and that is the way they sound, which is great. But Fender have kind of hedged their bets and introduced these 3 little push button controls. They've got a bright switch, which for loads of top. They've got a contour, which you can bring in. It's a bright switch. I mean, I guess it's the kind of thing that you'd want for sort of punk rock if you're hammering away with a plectrum.
Yeah, you want to scoop those mids a touch.
Well, yeah. The bright switch is, I suppose, kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of boosting the top end, and
Yeah, because the second option on there is a contour, so to scoop your mids even further, which is perfect for kind of those like, crystal clear, clean bass players who want that sort of funky sound. And then the last one, which is the one that I like the most, is they're calling it Vintage on and off, which is very, very similar to the Mark Bass VLF, the vintage loudspeaker emulator, which basically boosts all your low end and on Mark Bass as you turn it up, it boosts your low end more and scoops out your mids and your high end. With this, it's just a simple switch that gives the rest of your EQ are kind of predisposed.
What's this, just on or off?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Either on or off. So it boosts your lows. I don't know whether or not it cuts the mids and trebles a little bit, but it sounds great. Just do that, and you've got all that kind of that woolly, vintage sort of Jack Brucey tone, which is just really, really usable. So for something that is £228. Looks great, comes in a very robust metal chassis. It actually looks much better in person than I think it does in the images. I was worried it was going to be a little bit plastic when I saw it, and actually it's a very, very robust chassis. I just think it's well good. The cabinets that come with it are all silver face. The Fender logo
they
on them
look
is
super
really
vintagey, don't
they? Really brilliant, really great, because the Rumble stuff always looked a bit crap. Like, it really did. They're sort of that modern Fender logo. No one likes it. I don't know why they put it on anything, but that modern sort of square Fender logo and black mesh and carpet.
Yeah.
Who wants carpet on an amp? That the Rumble series kind of.
Cats love carpet on an amp.
Exactly.
As Mark knows from when his 610 lived at my house for a while. My cat absolutely loved it.
Absolutely ruined.
People who like Mark Bass.
Gents, we are running super long, so I'm going to skip my staff pick. I'll save it till next week. Let's do some
Partly
questions.
because also your staff pick I sold.
Really?
Wasn't your staff pick?
No, I've changed my staff pick.
Oh, right.
But actually, the staff pick I was going to go with, I have not yet played. I just saw it and thought, that is amazing. But before next week, I'll play it and we'll talk about it some more. Let's do some questions. Questions, as always, if you want to get in touch, podcast@gak.co.uk.
Questions.
We've had absolutely loads and loads of questions, some of which I shall read to you now.
Can I read them out in the voices that I think these people have?
No,
I don't think that's a good idea.
No, that's a very, very bad idea.
As we were just talking about the power of social media and how,
how easy it is to complain.
I think it's a very, very terrible idea.
Right, first up, Chris on Twitter says, love the podcast. I would like to get your thoughts and the guys' thoughts on the Dean Cadillac 1982 pickup guitar. Matt, you've looked into this.
It's amazing. It looks cool, but why that headstock?
Is it a split
it's a bit
V?
Weird, isn't it?
It's
split V.
Basically, I kind of think if you're gonna, I don't know, if you're in this sort of like Queens of the Stone Age-ish sort of, I don't know, you kind of want something different for like some alternative rock. I think it's an amazing looking guitar.
It's kind of like, a sort of a heavy looking version of something vintage, isn't it?
Yeah.
For people that don't know what it is kind of a Les Paul shape with an Iceman top.
No, it's an Explorer.
Oh, is it an Explorer?
It's kind of the.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It's the bottom half of an Explorer and the top half of a Les Paul.
Kind of,
Other way around.
No, it's not really the bottom half of it.
The bottom.
Oh, okay. If you're holding it by the neck, I guess it's
the bottom horn.
Yeah.
The lower horn.
The lower horn of an Explorer.
No, but the whole top. So the whole top, because the horn on the other side is a really sharp cut.
Yeah. So
like
if you're holding
a
guitar by the neck.
So it's a rounded
Kind of.
bottom,
Oh, yeah, so it
like
does.
a Les Paul.
I forgot about that.
And the top is like an Explorer,
Yeah.
but then it's got one of those split V headstocks. So it's kind of a mix.
So
of
it won't
everything.
fit in any case that you could ever buy.
I think the thing is,
it's
the
really
headstock
cool.
is a bit, when you actually see them as well, sometimes the headstock just looks like it's massive compared to the rest of.
Isn't that just because it's closer?
Or is it
Further away. I would say, Chris, that the bodies, they look really cool. If you were looking at something like a Les Paul, but you want something that is a bit different and has got a bit more style to it, it's got a bit of a twist, then they're fantastic. They really are different. And Dean build quality is very good. The styling is really nice.
USA built pickups.
Yeah,
The
USA.
nostalgia pickups, they're called.
Yes. The headstock.
I remember.
I think that the headstock's getting a thumbs down from us. But
I think it's cool. I'd only seen it in black, and now I see it in sunburst. I'm like, yeah, that's happening.
The thing for me is
Trans-Brasilia.
as long as you've got a hard case for it, then great. But that's the big thing with the Dean headstocks.
We've got to budget for a hard case, Jay. What are you going to do when you've bought that for your first gig guitar?
I mean, that's a very real concern. Is they just don't fit in very many cases.
But they do. I mean, there are companies like Coffin Case,
and
Swan,
the Gator Extremes.
Gator Extreme will fit them.
Yeah.
So,
Flight.
so we thinking. What we thinking? We like the look of it, but we think about the practicalities of something.
Yeah, I mean, if practicalities aside, you want something cool.
If you want
that's not a Les Paul.
if you want a fruity looking Les Paul, I think ESP do some cool stuff as well. Things like the X-Tone and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
there's definitely some other options as well, and even some of the ECs. If you want a Les Paul that's got a much more modern vibe as well, then the ESP or LTD E series from the 50s upwards, I guess, have got that kind of slightly flatter, less carved top Les Paul look to them. Definitely worth mentioning. But the Dean is cool. Are we doing much of the Cadillac stuff at the moment?
We have got a black one and a Trans-Brasilia one, which are the two main ones they do in stock at the moment.
Oh wow, there we go. Will via email says, I've been thinking that I wouldn't
mind an SG in my life.
Stop it.
Okay.
I've been thinking that I wouldn't mind an SG in my life. I've been looking at the SG Special and Tributes as they're not mind-blowingly pricey, but I wanted to swap out the hardware anyway. Is it worth just going for the Epiphone instead? I'm going to have to come down. I'm going to have to come down and check.
What
them
was
out.
that noise?
Sorry, I can't read.
For the bit good.
I'm going to come down and check them out in person, but at what level instrument is it worth upgrading the hardware on? The bare knuckles are $255 for a calibrated covered set, so more than the Epiphone. Should hardware ever cost more than just the block of wood you're putting them into? I'm so glad I've finished reading that.
Also, I think that's a very, very excellent question.
It is a really good question. At what point should you have just bought a more expensive guitar? Essentially, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the tough thing is as we were, I think as you were talking to a customer earlier, SGJs are $499. I mean,
yeah, just
I just
doesn't
buy
everyone own them?
I just buy an SGJ.
But
Also,
at the
everyone
same
should own an
time-
SG.
But at the same time, I can understand why you wouldn't buy an SGJ because they don't look great. They sound.
disagree.
I disagree.
I guess it depends on what you're looking at.
I'd be whipping the scratch plate off anyway.
The new ones, the 2014s, which are the ones you buy anyway now, I suppose. They do look better. But the thing about the SGJ is they are very, very stripped back.
Yeah.
It's that they come in only very limited finish options. Not everyone wants that satin finish. I really like it personally.
Colours.
Well, yeah, but you know what?
I mean, one of them is brown and then chocolate.
Yeah, I mean it's.
Yeah, okay.
And I think the SGJs are really good value for money. Really, really good value for money. But at the same time, I understand why someone might want to spend perhaps a little less on the actual guitar and then spend that extra money on the pickups. But the pickups, the thing with the SGJs is they're 490Rs and 490Ts, if I'm not mistaken, which are the same pickups that are in a Gibson Les Paul Custom.
No, that's the thing. In the 2014 SGJs, they're 61 Zebra humbuckers, which are the new redesigned vintage humbuckers.
They're 61s.
Yeah,
They're a really expensive pickup in a £499 guitar.
I mean that's
I mean,
really
the thing
good.
is, you wouldn't. I mean, well, like I say, your friend's got an Epiphone Les Paul Special 2, which he's put a bare knuckle in, and it sounds great. But if you're thinking about swapping out both, and then thinking about maybe changing the hardware, buy an SGJ, you don't have to. I mean, you know, I've got an SG Special from 2000, which I bought here in 2008, which is amazing. And you know.
What pickups did you put in it?
Bare knuckle
Mississippi Queens.
Oh, they sound incredible.
Which sound great. And the thing is, I've never played. I mean, I've played some great SGs, but I've never found one as nice as that. And that guitar was $399 at the time, $450 at the time, and that was the granddaddy of this one basically.
Yeah. So, well, I guess our advice would be if you want something that, if you're desperate for something that looks like an SG standard, cherry with that kind of proper scratch plate on it, then the Epiphone is kind of a good choice. But personally, I would never spend more on the hardware than I'm spending on the guitar.
Yeah.
I do think pickups make a huge difference to a guitar, but I think you've got to go for overall build quality, and for you're getting something like an SGJ.
For, by the way, a fully American-built guitar for less than £500. I mean, they're so good.
Perfect. SGJs really are your way into, and LPJs, your way into Gibson guitars at the moment if you don't want to spend a ton of money.
Yeah, come down, try one out.
Yeah, this is the thing. Come try them out. I think it's not apparent until you get your hands on them just how much better the feel is on something like an SGJ.
And for lefties, they're still...
they actually, it's the only... sort of like brown, the only chocolate finish SG you can buy.
Well, I mean, the fact that you can actually still get like SGs,
colour options.
Like loads of different colour options. That are, those ones are $399 because they're the older model, and we've still got some left for lefties. So lefties have got some good choices as well.
Laurie on Twitter says,
"Your pick of the best Auto War envelope filter pedal."
Laurie on Twitter says, your pick of the best Auto / envelope filter pedal. I'm not doing the voice.
You definitely did. You definitely did the accent. You definitely did the accent.
Matt Knight, can we get your pick of the best Auto /
Are you rolling with that?
envelope
Are you
filter
not going to edit it out?
No, I'm not.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I'm into
I'm not going to edit it out. Let's go with it.
I hate to mention it again, but just... I nearly spoke an Italian accent then.
Keep on topic.
Your pick of the best envelope wire pedal, please.
I would say spend £85 and buy a Line 6M5. I know we keep getting on about it, but there's 3 different auto wires in there.
Yeah.
Or actually, I thought about this and we mentioned it last week as well. The Digitech Synth War.
Yes.
Simple. How much are they?
Oh, yeah,
£39.
Yeah, the bass one. It's full bass, but sounds wicked on guitar.
Yeah.
In
Which
fact,
is often the way.
Yeah, for the guitar. If you're going to buy one for guitar, buy the bass one because it's got better low end frequencies. But yeah, I mean, the Boss one's cool and you can plug an expression pedal in and use it like a normal wire pedal. But then what's the point in having an auto wire if you're going to?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're... The M5 is definitely a good choice because it's got a lot of variety, but if you need some pedal board real estate, then
actually,
the Digitech Synth
throw one in the mix. There's a good, just because it's got a good name, the Moore Funky Monkey.
Oh, yeah.
What are they doing, honestly?
But then it's £65. Like, you could just buy a Digitech one.
Funky Monkey.
Yeah, it's
so if you're really struggling for space, get yourself a Funky Monkey.
Yeah.
Perfectly good.
It's little and it's got a rate control on
It's
it.
got everything you want. No one's mentioned the Qtron. Any of the various.
But I think they've kind of
sort of had their day, really. Yeah.
I mean, fair enough. The people that, or the guy that designed the Qtron pedals actually designed the original Mutron auto wires, which are like the most famous ones.
Right. Let's do another email. Matt for Matt.
I don't know what's happening anymore.
really
What's
hope-
happened since I've been away?
I
Is this
really
what
hope-
This is what the podcast is
What's
now.
turned
I really
into?
hope you know this fella and he actually talks like that.
Right, we're running out of time. I've just noticed that we're running out of time on this handy recorder. Matt via email says, not much talk of guitar amps on the podcast recently, so I have a question for you all. What is the best amp I can buy for home/practice/maybe small gig use? Needs to handle pedals well and cover blues to hard rock with my Les Paul and Strat. I think I want multi-channel and for the added flexibility, in brackets, no blues junior, sorry Jay,
Hey.
and sound great at low volumes too. I'm happy to splash out a bit for quality. Boogie Rectiverb, Dr. Z, Maz. Also, is it worth getting a bigger multi-speaker cab, even if the head itself is kind of small? Does this always give a better sound, or will a combo do the job? Now, we're pushed for time on the podcast. We literally are pushed for how much recording time we've got left on this SD card. So, very quickly, let's have one suggestion from each of you, I guess. Matt and I, what are you saying?
Well, after we demoed it, and the videos I think are coming soon, and I'll make sure I go into it more next week.
it's
But
up today. The video's up today.
Oh, okay. The Rectiverb, I mean, you'll see from the video, those new Boogie Rectiverb 25s are amazing. I would buy one of those over like a Fender Princeton, or you want a more expensive, something that sounds like a Blues Junior that's more expensive with multi-channel. They're superb.
Joe?
Always going to go for sort of an orange thing, I guess. So if it was like, something like the Thunder 30, I guess.
Yep.
Has a multi-channel thing, just 'cause they're wicked.
I've not really had much of a chance to spend any time with the Rectiverb, but I find it so difficult to look past the Express.
Yeah.
The Meta Boogie Express 525 or the 550 if you want something a little bit bigger. 2 channels, both of which have 2 different voicings, and both of which are switchable between 3 different wattages. 25 is switchable from 25. Is it 3 different voltages or 3 different wattages or 2 different wattages?
25.
Yeah, because it's 25, 10 and 5.
15 and 5.
15 and 5, yeah. So both channels are independently switchable. So at home you can have them both set to 5 watts. If you want to play a small gig, you can have the drive channel set to 5 watts or maybe 15 watts for your drive sound, and you can have the clean channel set to 25 for your headroom. I just think the Express combos are so good, so good, and I find it so difficult to look past anything other than those if you want to spend a little bit more money and have that super versatility.
I mean, I would jump in and just say pretty much anything small from the Boogie range. You mentioned them in your email, but I think the Rectiverb, for me, just out of simplicity, jumps out a little bit more than the Express. I think really easy to use. Look at the video that we've got up, which should be on the site, on the Rectiverb product page, or on the YouTube channel is the other way to find it. They're really, really good. Just loads of versatility, loads of clean headroom if you need it, but also all the drive sounds you'd expect from a Boogie. Boogie Rectiverb would do it for me, definitely. One last email that we've got time to read, and I will present this without comment from anyone here. Simon via email says, Strats are the lowest common denominator of guitars. Anyone who says otherwise is a disco-loving pervert or worships at the church of MOR sellouts like Mark Knopfler or Jeff Beck. If anyone wants to come back with that next week,
That's
Simon
to the
via
point.
email.
podcast@gak.co.uk if you want to respond to Simon. Where can people find you on the intrawebs?
You can find me at my email address is j.cross@gak.co.uk, or you can find me bemoaning the lackadaisical and inevitably boring end to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club's end of season at JAYBM1 on Twitter.
Matt, where can people find you?
You can email me matt.knight@gak.co.uk, or you can tweet me matt_knight, so that's Knight with SIE on the end. And let's talk more Auto War, funky monkeys to synth wars.
Joe Branton, where can people find you?
You can email me on joe.branton@gak.co.uk, or you can find me on Twitter at Joseph_900.
Excellent. If you want to interact with the podcast in any way, podcast@gak.co.uk or on Twitter @GAK_co_UK or on Facebook, facebook.com/GAK music. Or you can get me on Twitter, Mark_random. I want to talk about the fact that at least 5 or 6 of our staff members are collecting the Panini World Cup 2014 sticker album.
I'm really into the idea of it.
We will have a lot of swapsies if anyone wants to get involved. Thanks very much. We'll see you next week.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Farewell, goodbye, we'll see you again someday. But little do you know that we're naked here with Jay.
They're eating her. And then they're going to eat me. Oh my